What's going on, guys? It is Filmington, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about Top Series 2 and whether I think it's a good buy. I'll break down the supply, the demand perspective, current pricing, etc., etc. So probably leading up to a few weeks before release. By the way, release was last Friday, and that was June 11th. Pre-order prices were sitting at around 120 to 130 bucks, depending on whether you're looking at Blowout, Steel City, DA Card World. They were all pretty much the same around that 120 to 130 dollar range, I believe, for hobby boxes. Um, and this was pretty similar to what we saw with Series One earlier this year. The main differences, well, there's a lot of differences, but from the demand side, clearly with the dip, there's not as much demand right now. There's not as many people buying cards, as many distributors that are wanting to fulfill their entire allocations. Less people wanting to take risk and less people wanting to enjoy the cards because they're spending money elsewhere. And that could be a different video. And I know a number of content creators have already covered the dip in one way or another. But with Series 2, what we saw over the last, well, it's been out for about 5 days now. What we've seen is a slow decline in prices. With eBay, I think after the first couple days after release, prices came down to about 105 bucks on hobby boxes from around 125 where they started. And I'm noticing on the dealer market that actually bid and ask prices are actually in the mid 70s, and they have been for at least 3 days. So prices crash real hard on the dealer market. For me, this is something that's often a leading indicator that I look at, especially for recent releases of products. It certainly tells a lot, and there is quite a bit of transaction volume on this dealer market that I look at. So it's not just a few sales, and it's definitely coming down. And this is something that we also saw with 2021 Bowman. One of the things that's probably a little bit interesting and different with Series 2 is that prices came down very quickly. And usually it can take, for a new product, one that's desirable, it can take 3 to 4 weeks for prices to really kind of come down and eventually proceed and progress towards that bottom, where you have kind of like the waning demand of consumers. They're moving on to new products. The breaker groups kind of want to break something different because they've already broken. In this case, it would be Series 2. You have a lot of singles out there that that customers can go after, so they don't have to open the product. And there's enough of that product out there. The market's really fully saturated with that. You have the first, second, and third allocations. Dealers, distributors are able to get a lion's share of the total amount of product that was printed. So seeing prices decline as fast as they have, naturally, I compare this to, I'm comparing this to Series 1. Series 1 is currently more expensive. Series 1 is traditionally a product that's also printed more. So irrespective of print run, something that's important to understand, irrespective of the checklist, usually Topps will print more of Series 1 than Series 2. And it has a lot to do with timing of the product. It's been 5 or 6 weeks for Topps since they released their first major product. People are anticipating the baseball season, and they want to get their hands on the latest year's product. So generally, Series 1 is just really popular and sought after for those reasons. So they're not printing as much Series 2, which is kind of important when you compare the two products now. Now, obviously, the market's dipped, it's softened, and the amount of demand that was there when Series 1 was released in early February was a lot higher. So a lot of Series 1's already been opened. It's been moved. So that's one of the reasons I think why Series 1 is currently higher, probably at around $120 still. It's kind of held steady, probably around like 120 to 140 or 150 for a while. And this is in spite of many of the star rookies in Series 1 not really doing a whole lot this year. Alec Boehm hasn't done much. Ryan Mountcastle hasn't done much. Dylan Carlson, he's not really like lighting up the scoreboard. He's having a decent season. And Joe Adell is still in the minor leagues. Nick Madrigal is out for the year with a torn hammy. There's a number of other, Series 1 was very deep, but none of those names, Christian Pache, Joey Bart, have really done a whole lot this year. So, and then you look at Series 2, the checklist there with I would call the big three. You might say it's just really a big two or the top two. And I would agree with that. Definitively, the top two are going to be in any order: Jazz Chisholm and Ke'Bryan Hayes. These are two very dynamic players. I think what they've shown on the field this year, and Ke'Bryan Hayes also last year, is more than what we've seen from anybody from the Series 1 checklist. So, you might argue that Joe Adell, he's got the highest ceiling out of anybody that's in Series 1 and Series 2 combined. And sure, I would agree with that, but he hasn't really shown a whole lot. So he might be the standout in Series 1, but he's not right now. And right now, if I was to combine Series 1 and Series 2, the three players that I'd want, they're base rookie cards and parallels of, usually I'm more of a parallel guy. I would seek out three guys from Series 2, all from Series 2. And that would be Jazz Chisholm, Ke'Bryan Hayes, and Alex Kirilloff. I think Alex Kirilloff rounds out that top three. He's been a top prospect for a while, plays for a small market team, not as small as Jazz and Ke'Bryan and who they play for. But I think these guys are quite talented. First, Jazz Chisholm, I believe he turned 23 years old this year, just a few months ago. And this is a guy that I think people expected the batting average to be a little bit more of an issue. And with the strikeouts at around 31% this year, it could come down quite a bit. But he has shown a pretty good batting eye, good plate discipline, good walk rate like he had in the minors. And this is a guy that looks like he could, I think he's actually on pace. If you were to extrapolate his stats, he's been injured a bit, but he could be a 30-30 guy. And it's interesting and funny at the same time that what a lot of people want out of Francisco Lindor, that might actually be Jazz Chisholm going forward. Maybe his power ceiling isn't as great, but we haven't really seen much from him. And I think he has two home runs off like some of the fastest pitches in baseball this year. And one of them was like a neck high fastball off Jacob deGrom, just out of the zone high, middle high. So Jazz Chisholm's got a personality too. So soft market in Miami, but he's got a good personality. And he could have the makings of becoming a star, to be honest. Not a lot of guys can go 30-30, and it looks like he has that potential. Ke'Bryan Hayes, unlike Jazz being a shortstop, which I would consider a benefit in the hobby, even though you could argue that there's only been so many, shortstops that haven't been undervalued, because you've got, of course, Trevor Story, Trey Turner. It's not a position thing. It has to do with other factors with those players, which we're not going to get into, and why they're not maybe selling at what you think they should. But shortstop is a benefit, and it's going to be a benefit for Tatis going forward if he's able to play that position over time. But Ke'Bryan Hayes plays third base. And this is a guy that it's similar with Chisholm, similar case, where this is exposing some of the difficulties in our lack of ability to watch these players play in minor league games last year, because both of these players made leaps in their skills, and we weren't able to see it, quantify it. It was pretty unexpected when Ke'Bryan Hayes got called up last year, and I think he hit like 370, just under 100 plate appearances, I believe, at 5 home runs. Nobody really expected the power. He's got a little bit of speed as well, but he looks like quite the talented hitter, sprays the ball to all fields. Limited sample size here, but I like what I see, and he's not super young like Ronald Acuna or Vlad were when they got called up, but I think he just turned 24, so he's on the right side of 24. And who knows, maybe he moves to a different market in the future. I've said this before, but I'd almost prefer a guy starting with a low market, because they can only go up from where they are. Small market, unnoticed, and eventually they might move elsewhere. But guess who's going to pick them up? Probably not going to be another small market team that picks them up. It's probably going to be a contender, which often is a middle to large market team. So yeah, I like those two guys. Kirilloff, first base, third base type, or first base outfield guy, and he's got a lot of raw power. And I'd definitely put him third. Other guys on the checklist, with Series 2, it's never going to be as deep as Series 1, because Series 1, you presumably get all the guys from last year. They got called up late in the season. Series 2, you're getting like the guys that are expected to debut or actually debut on the roster. So you don't have the depth. In 2019, same thing, solid checklist, but you didn't have the depth. 2020, same thing, hardly any depth. And that was weird because of the timing of the season and everything, shortened season. But um, other guys that might be decent on that checklist, I don't consider them being huge guys in the hobby. Jake Cronenworth, um, almost won Rookie of the Year last year, but didn't. He's a fine player, 15 home run, 15 steal type guy, multi-position eligibility, but the type of guy that's probably more valuable of a asset to his team than in the hobby. McClanahan is an interesting guy. Now, pitchers are always a huge risk, and a pitcher on Tampa Bay that's might get babied for quite a while, and they might not allow him to go deep into games. There's a little bit of a risk there, but I think they understand what they have in McClanahan, and he's one of the hardest throwing left-handed pitchers of the last century, I believe. And you can fact check me on that, but I think that's something I heard from the CBS fantasy baseball guys. Pretty incredible. Gets a lot of swinging whiffs, swings and misses on his pitches, and he's got quite elite stuff. And it's something that he hasn't quite tapped into yet, but he's a guy to certainly monitor. And as much as how productive he is, how many innings he's getting as well, especially in this first year. But yeah, I mean, don't go nuts on McClanahan. Just somebody who I'm looking out for. And every year there's a pitcher that, in 2020 Series 1, it was Jesus Luzardo. Dustin May was another one, like guys with really, really great stuff, elite arms, top draft picks, and just something to watch. Not really something to get like heavily invested in or heavily leveraged in. So some players that didn't make the checklist, some people expected Jonathan India. So India actually made the starting squad, but it wasn't really understood until I think late March when they realized, we can just move Eugenio Suarez from third to shortstop and allow India to get into the lineup somewhere. And he wasn't able to actually make the checklist because Topps is printing these out so far in advance. Andrew Vaughn, similar situation there. Wasn't really known he was going to make the team. A lot of people probably expected it in March, but it wasn't announced till later in March, and Topps missed a memo on that. So it wasn't included. And something that I found interesting, I was looking through Blowout forums. They said that if the player was not in Series 1, but they were in Inception, I believe they're talking about Bowman Inception. It's not a product that I know a whole lot about, but Bowman Inception comes out before Series 2, after Series 1. So if they're in that product, then there's a good chance they'll be in Series 2 as a rookie. Again, if they're not already in Series 1. So a few, and then there was a few midseason call-ups, and a notable name here is Jared Kelenic. It's, I think I was told that it's 2 syllables, not 3. So it's not Kelenic, it's Kelnick. And he was called up to the big league club right around like May 15th. And that's generally not going to be enough time for them to make Series 2. Topps Chrome comes out in a couple months. It was actually pushed back 2 weeks, I believe. Usually comes out towards the end of July, but it's going to come out in like mid-August. And a May 15th call-up should get you into Topps Chrome, I believe, as an autograph only, which is what we saw in 2019 with Nick Senzel, Austin Riley. I think Senzel might have been even a little bit earlier than Riley. And Keston Hiura, I believe, also was called up in mid-May. But if you look at the guys that squeezed into Series 2 before that weren't included on the opening day roster, Vlad Guerrero comes to mind. But he was like third or fourth week into April where he got called up. So really, we shouldn't have expected Kelnick to be in this in this product, but he should be in Topps Update. He should be in Topps Update, I believe. And with Topps Chrome, again, maybe we'll see him as an auto only. But all right, so that's the checklist. I do believe there are some pretty cool super short prints in this product. I saw one floating around on Facebook. It's the super short print of Jazz Chisholm, and there's also the super short print. I'm not sure what the print runs are for any of those things. There's a Mickey Mantle. It might be like a ultra super short print that one of my friends, Mike, thinks is going to be a big card to hit. I don't know if there's any of those that have been pulled yet. In conclusion, I think Top Series 2 is a strong product. I think it's one worth buying from a hobby perspective. And that is once prices dip a little bit, once that demand starts to wane, once people's attention starts to turn to newer and more exciting things, and the product is more available than it even is today, once that gap between the secondary market and dealer market prices begins to close, that is when I would execute. So whether you're buying to open, whether you're buying to hold for a year or longer, whether you're buying to flip within 6 months, I would really try hard to wait another 2 or 3 weeks till that price dips. And I expect it to dip. And I'm talking the secondary market. I expect hobby boxes, regular hobby boxes, to dip to around 85, maybe high 80s, but certainly around somewhere around that $85 range. And I think that would be a pretty strong buy, given all the factors I mentioned with the total print run, with the checklist, comparing it to Series 1 and other releases that we're expecting this year. Now, of course, be careful. Don't buy too much. We're in an area right now where demand is, in aggregate, it's lower across the entire market, across especially the modern market. This affects singles. This affects wax, maybe to a lesser extent, but it certainly does affect wax, especially the newer stuff that's dependent on people buying into breaks to keep those prices up. So, you're going to have dealers less patient. You're going to have dealers that aren't as well capitalized, that aren't as willing to hold and take risks with this product, that are willing to dump it sooner rather than later. So just keep that in mind. There might be a higher amount of short-term volatility just because of those factors. And we've kind of seen it with 2021 Bowman as well. All right, guys, that's it for me. Tell me what you think. You going to buy any Series 2? You agree with anything that I said or not? Let me know below. Take care, guys. Filmington out.